Hello, my dear friends. I know that many of us are very disappointed. The results of the elections are not what we had hoped for, and there was a major effort to try to put certain people into office that did not materialize. In the aftermath, people are very despondent and depressed, and people are nervous and worried. There are people that say that this is the anti-Semitism in America, which is skyrocketing. We're on the verge of Germany in the 1930s. People are worried about the financial stability in New York. People living in New York are worried that the whole economy is going to collapse and that people are going to sell their houses. They're going to move to Florida, move to Israel, which happens to be a good thing. So I would like to present. I'm not going to tell you what's going to happen, and I'm also not going to tell you there's nothing to worry about, because I'm not a Navi. So how do I know? I'm not a prophet. How do I know what's going to happen in the future? But nonetheless, I think there's a Torah approach how you're supposed to deal with situations such as this that we find ourselves in currently now. That is, there's a pasuk in Chumash that talks about exactly what are you supposed to do when the election comes out. It didn't happen the way we wanted. What are we supposed to feel now? So the Chumash says in Parak Yud Ches in Devarim pasuk Yud Gimel, the Chumash is talking about sorcerers and fortune tellers and divination and all these kind of ways to figure out what's going to happen in the future. So the Torah says, don't do any of those things. They're an abomination in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What should you instead? Tamim tiyem Hashem Elokecha. You should be tamim with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So now, what does the word tamim mean? So tam can mean pure, tam can mean whole, tam can mean complete. The article translates it, tamim here means wholehearted with Hashem. What does that mean, wholehearted? Rashi says that tamim tiyem Hashem Elokecha means hisal chimo b'tamimis v'titzapa lo v'lo sachar achar asidus. Be tam with Hashem. Again, what does that mean? I'll tell you in a moment. Below tachkar achar hasidus. Don't try to figure out what's happening in the future. Don't. Tachkar means to examine or explore. Don't do all these things. You go to a seance to find out what's going to happen in the future. El kol ma sheyovo alecha kabel b'tamimus. Whatever happens, except with tamimus. I would suggest that tamimus, according to Rashi, means the word tam in the Haggadah. There's 4 types of sons. One of them is the tam. The tam is the simpleton. He doesn't. There's any of the Elishol who doesn't know how to think. He can't even ask a question. But and then there's the Chacham who's very smart and he's brilliant and he's insightful. And then there's the Rasha who's evil. But there's the tam. Is somebody who is simple-minded. I mean, he's able to ask a question. Mazos. But that's the depth of the question. Mazo, what is this? So tamimus means be simple-minded. That's what I would say. Tamim tiyeh Hashem Elokecha means approach things in a simple-minded way. Why? Because you're not going to be able to figure out what's going to happen. It doesn't matter how many talk shows you listen to and how many you listen to all these chachamim with their analysis and strategies and all the. Nobody knows what's going to happen in the future. It's impossible to figure out. And as a result, I'm not saying that we don't have to be concerned. And there, a Jew is required to make hishtadlus. You're not allowed to sit back and say, listen, God runs the world and whatever's going to happen, is going to happen. So therefore, I'm never going to diet. I'm going to eat chocolate cake every day, 5 pieces, and I'll gain 200 pounds, and I'll never exercise, and whatever. I'm not worried about my health. I'll never go to a doctor. That's wrong. You're supposed to be mishtadel. But after the hishtadlus happens, you're supposed to recognize that I don't have control over myself, and I don't have control over the world, and nobody does, and I don't know what's going to happen in the future. And the reality is that so that's what I would say. Tamimus here means, Tamim tiyeh Hashem Elokecha means, don't ask so many questions. Don't try to deeply, delve deeply and figure out what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going to happen, and it's foolish to try to based on analysis. Now, maybe the things that we're worried about will transpire, but maybe they won't. Who knows? There's the pasuk in Chumash that I always quote is that Yosef said to his brothers, after Yaakov died, the brothers came to Yosef and they said that don't harm us, so don't punish us for what we did to you. And Yosef said, don't worry. You thought you were hurting me, you were harming me, you were doing me a disservice. God decided that it should be for the good, because if not for the fact that you sold me into slavery, then I would not have become the viceroy in Egypt, and we all would have perished during the famine. So it was really a good thing that God did. That God behind the scenes, God was facilitating it. That's how life is. That there's so many things that we think it's bad, it's terrible, the sky is falling, we're pulling out our hair, but God flips it and it becomes something good. And on the other hand, there are things that we think are wonderful. A person can get a new job and he thinks, "What? This is the best job in the world, and I'm so excited, and the salary is terrific, and the perks, and then it becomes a catastrophe." I use an example: the Challenger spacecraft, which exploded a few minutes after it took off. If you're old enough to remember, it was horrific, and in the schools, the children followed the journey of the astronauts. There were 7 astronauts that were chosen. It was all the selection process was very difficult. The company had 7 lucky, in quotation marks, people were chosen to be the astronauts, and the media, everybody was following the trajectory and the journey of these individuals who had an opportunity of a lifetime to become astronauts and go into outer space and become famous, and there'll be book deals. So much terrific stuff would emerge from that. And then in one split second, that which appeared to be phenomenally wonderful at a windfall, everything flipped upside down. Enormous tragedy, and the 7 astronauts perished. So on the one hand, what we think is terrific, and we know that the future is going to be great, it could flip the other way in a moment's notice. And on the other hand, things that seem to be terrible could turn out to be good. So does that mean that we don't have to be concerned? No, we should be. It's normal to be concerned. And the person, if you're not concerned, then you're not going to take any steps to protect yourself. So a person needs to be concerned, but there has to be a balance. And that is, the balance is, the Tam, he asks questions. Mazos, that's his question. What is this? It's okay. He should ask something. He shouldn't be like any of the show that he just closes his eyes and doesn't know what's going on. You have to ask questions, but don't be a chacham. Don't try to figure out what's going to happen in the future. That's what Rashi says. Lo sachkar achar asidus. Don't investigate. How could you investigate the future? You have no way of knowing. And all these people that are such big chachamim, and they offer their opinions, and they tell you what's going to happen, and they're sure this and they're sure that, doesn't mean anything, because the world could flip on a dime. Everything could change. I was thinking, the Akedah in this week's Parsha, it says, Achar hadvarim ha'ela, v'elokim niso es Avram. After these events, God tested Avram. So the Mefarshim struggle. What is after what? Achar hadvarim ha'ela. After what event did the Akedah take place, where God tested Avram? So the event that took place right before the Akedah was that Avram made a bris with Avimelech. So some of us say that he was being punished. The Akedah was a punishment because he shouldn't have made a bris with Avimelech. Okay, that's one explanation. But other Rashi's going that way. Rashi's Achar Dvar means that it was after the Sutton complains to God and said to God that Avram's not such a big tzaddik. I want to suggest my own shot, noob shot. What does it mean? Achar Dvar Ma'ela. It means this was the 10th test. The 10th test came. There was a sequence. There were 10 tests that Avram went through. They were in a specific order. There's a reason why they came that way. Do you want to know what was the reason for that order? Why was there that sequence? The answer is nobody knows. You could try to offer explanations, and you could say maybe it's because of this and maybe that, and you could say Dvar Torah, and you can speak Shal Shuddus, and you can give a drasha, but in the end, the bottom line is nobody knows. God has His own plan, and He hasn't revealed it to any of us, unless you're a Navi and you have prophecy. But otherwise, we don't know. So here, there was a reason why it happened now. The Akedah, Achar Dvar Me'elu. It happened after the previous events of Avram's life. But you want to know why? The answer is we don't know why. There's no way to know why. Can't tell you, because we're not prophets, and there's no way to figure out. The beginning of the parsha, Vayera Elov Hashem Be'elonei Mamre. God appeared to Avram in Elonei Mamre, and Avram was sitting Pesach Ol Chol Hayom was sitting outside his tent, and you know the story is that the Malachim came, and Avram gave them. He invited them into his house. He didn't know that they were Malachim. He gave them food to eat, and then they told Avram that he's going to have a child, to Avram and Sarah. And then they went on. It turned out they were angels, and they went on to destroy Sodom and Amorah and to save Lot. So the Orach Chaim Hakadosh and the Kli Yakar asked, why does it say Vayera Elav Hashem? He appeared to him, Hashem. It's backwards. It should be Vayera Hashem Elav. God appeared to you. put the subject before the verb. God appeared to Avram. Instead, it's he appeared God. Why write it that way? In all the other places in the Torah where God appears, it says Yomer Hashem Elav. God said to him, Vayidaber Hashem Elav. Always God comes first, the subject, then the noun, then the verb. Why here is it's left mysterious? Vayera Elav, and then Hashem. So I was thinking along the same lines. When this encounter that Avram had this changed the course of history, because Avram, he thought that they were three Arab idol worshippers that were walking in the desert, and he was inviting them into his house for a meal. But it turned out that first of all, they were not ordinary people. They were not even people. They were angels. They were malachim. And second of all, it turned out that the Chazal say that whatever Avram did for the malachim himself, God repaid him directly. God repaid Avram, his descendants. And whatever Avram did through a shliach, God repaid through a shliach. So, for example, Avram said, I'll have somebody bring you some water. So the Jewish people in the desert were repaid with water, but the water was Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that caused, or it was Miriam through the bear rather, that caused the water, but it wasn't directly from Hashem. On the other hand, the Avram slaughtered cattle so that he did himself, so that was rewarded, that the Jews received in the desert. They received slav from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and they also received the man. These were monumental events that were happening, that were unfolding. There was so much significance to every one of these encounters that Avram had with these people. But did Avram have any idea when they walked into his house, these three people dressed up like Arabs or Bedouins or wanderers in the desert? Did he have an iota of a notion who they were? Absolutely not. So therefore, it says Vayera Elav Hashem. Hashem is always operating in the world, but most of the time we don't feel it. We're not cognizant of it. Maybe intellectually know it, but we don't feel it. It's only with hindsight that you know how HaKadosh Baruch Hu is operating the world. And therefore, when they came to Avram, it seemed like just an everyday event. And in our own lives, we never know. Things happen with lightning speed, and things keep on changing, and there's certain things that are tremendous tragedies. There was an accident in Lakewood last week. There were three young men were killed in a tragic drunk driver hit them. It was a horror of horrors. and other things happen that are terrific out of no place. People out of work, they get jobs, and they or people have illness and they recover. Life changes at lightning speed, but we don't know where anything. That's the same point. That when it happened to Avram, they walked into his house. He had no idea who they were and what they wanted and what it was all about. But in the end, he discovered that it was of monumental importance. So the bottom line is that we have to have emunah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the master planner of the world and the master guide and the executor, and that everything that's happening, HaKadosh Baruch Hu orchestrates everything according to his master plan, and there's nothing by accident and nothing haphazard and nothing at random. But what we should not be doing is to try to figure out, this is good and that's bad. You have to put your trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Al tachkar achar ha'asidas. Be like the Tam. That's the model. The Tam, he's able to ask Mazos, what is this? But that's it. That's where he stops. That's how we should be. We should be like the Tam. We should place our trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Thank you for listening, and have a good Shabbos.